So I know we're running a little bit late, so I'm going to try to make this a little bit faster than, than the half an hour I had allocated. So first of all, I'm actually going to talk about how pricing doesn't have to equal friction. That's actually the point of what I'm going to talk about. So what is pricing? So for those of you who do not know, pricing is setting a price to something, right? That started ever since the first days of commerce. When we started to sell something, we began to ask in exchange for what, right? So the first approach that everyone had to the market is I'm going to look at this from a cost plus standpoint. So a cost plus standpoint is let's see how much it costs me to create the service or to create the product. I'm going to put my margin on top of it. I'm going to try to understand how much money I want to make or I need to make out of each unit that I'm going to sell, and I'm going to sell it for that price. Then came marketing, which kind of screwed it all up, and cost plus was no longer the ideal solution. So you needed, in theory, to understand what was the quality of the product, if it was high, if it was low, the price high and low, and you would kind of decide your pricing pretty much along that diagonal. High quality stuff would be more expensive, low quality stuff would be less expensive. Problem is, the definition of quality and the definition of high price is probably not the same for me than it is for you, than it is for everyone else. So even up to today, price is usually the single-handedly most significant point of friction when you're trying to sell something. So a lot of processes in sales tend to disappear when you start talking about the pricing. And the first insight from this presentation that I wanted to share with you is that it's never about the amount. Of course, within reason, of course, if I want to go ahead and buy a private jet, it is because of the amount, it is about the amount. I can't afford it. But usually it's never literally about how much single units of euros it costs to buy something. So people started to make pricing a whole science, which is an amazing science within marketing. But like always, we over-engineered it like crazy. And a great example of over-engineering in pricing is actually airliners. You can never understand what the right price is for the ticket, the price. Is it good to buy on I don't know, I've read a million different theories online and actually did some research before this of airline pricing. And, there's a million different theories. Some people say that the best moment to buy a ticket is Thursday afternoon, 3 weeks before your scheduled departure date. There's a bunch of different theories of the right moment to buy a ticket. There's also an amazing startup in Israel that is focused on corporate traveling. So you buy your ticket, you send that ticket to that startup, and the startup monitors the price evolution of your ticket after you bought it. And if for some reason the ticket price goes below the cost of canceling, it automatically cancels your reservation and buys it again for you because technically you're saving money. That's borderline ridiculous as pricing comes, in my opinion. So let's talk a little bit about SaaS, because I'm guessing that in the startup world stage, that's what most people will relate to. So SaaS came kind of as an answer to enterprise software typical pricing or typical software pricing. And, I've been thinking for quite some time, is it really a different pricing model? So if you look at probably Slack, pretty sure almost everyone already used Slack in their lives eventually. So if you look at the Slack pricing, pretty much have a pro, business, and then an enterprise where you can get custom pricing. But it's nonetheless a licensing-based pricing. So you still have to pay X amount for a next period of time. You're still entitled to certain users, and more often than not, you pay more or less depending on the features that you wanted to use. that's really not that different than the traditional licensing prices that we used to buy in exchange for CD-ROMs that we installed in PCs at home. The main difference is that it changed most of the tech companies to kind of became financial institutions. So they fund the acquisition of the software to their customers. But the price didn't change. The fact that I can buy a Ferrari in soft 84 installments of to 3,000 euros doesn't make the Ferrari more affordable or didn't change the price of the Ferrari. It just changes the way I'm paying for the Ferrari because of a financial institution. So at the end, everyone ended up a little bit with the same perception. Nowadays, there are companies where you put all your SaaS software there, you put the price that you're paying for your SaaS software, and it optimizes your SaaS licensings. So at the end, and I know that at Ledzai, every quarter or every 6 months, depending on how my CFO is looking at the budget, he asks everyone to assess all the SaaS software that we're using, all the licenses, are we still using them, is it valuable, do we have redundancies in different SaaS providers, is there anything that we need to cut? So tech companies evolved to a new different type of pricing, more focused on consumption pricing. So you pretty much pay for what you use rather than SaaS, which is kind of a financial subsidized software licensing. So this is a great example of consumption pricing. This is a print screen from the Google Cloud Platform pricing. And I didn't choose Azure because I'm not going to say something very nice, so I'm choosing Google Cloud Platform. No one understands cloud pricing. That's the reality, I think that one day we're going to make that one of the interview questions is someone should explain to us how much we're going to pay for cloud. No one understands it, period. You kind of pray, you take a look at it every now and then, you see if it's going too much, you yell at a couple of developers if it's too much, and they kind of try to optimize something and see if you pay less. But consumption prices of cloud software, no one actually understands them. But beyond the understanding part, I have a strong problem with consumption pricing, is that you're absolutely misaligning incentives. If you create a product, you want people to use your product. That's the core of the purpose. The more people use the product, the stickier it is, the less likely they are to churn. But at the same time, you're telling them that the more they use the product, the more expensive it will be for them to use the product. So you're kind of creating an incentive while they'll use the product as little as possible, while you still want to keep them, while you actually want to charge them as much as you can. So it's just very conceptually weird. And by the way, not at all aligned with a cost-plus type of approach, because I'm pretty sure that for Google it's absolutely relevant if you're using 1 tera, 10 tera, 100 terabytes, whatever, it doesn't move the needle in terms of costs. So that's the reason why companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, etc., then came up with a great solution. Let's offer 200,000 euros of vouchers for startups to start using the product, because like that, at least they'll be able, we'll correct the pricing faux pas, and they'll be able to use the platform, gain some stickiness, gain some dependency, and then they'll start paying. No offense, but it's kind of the equivalent of drug dealers offering drugs for free at high schools, right? So yeah, I'm sorry, but coming to a Microsoft event and comparing to drug dealers is actually cool. So yeah, that's sorry, that's it for consumption-based pricing. Then looking at performance pricing. This is obviously what I believe that makes the most sense as the evolution of pricing. And I'm super happy to see that every day more studies around pricing refer how a lot of business are heading towards a performance pricing approach, where you align everything. You align the value that the user sees in the product, you align the price. Great example for that is Intercom, for instance. their AI initiatives around automating chats with customers, they're doing something super cool, where per ticket successfully solved in AI. And that's something that I actually want to pay. Obviously, because they're charging me less than it would cost me to do it manually. But I'm happy every time I pay for a ticket. Didn't cost me time from my people. I didn't even see it. Customer is happy. I'm not paying for an AI chatbot where my obvious question is, will my customers be happy or not? I'm actually paying for something that my customer said, yeah, I'm happy with that support. Therefore, Intercom charges me. Which, by the way, is the entire purpose of customer support, is making sure that your customers are happy. So if your customers are happy, you're paying for it. So actually, every time I'm paying for it, I have a good feeling. It feels $1 for every time. There's a positive resolution automatically that I don't have to deal with. Another example, and I couldn't avoid it, it's my own company, where what we sell is customers to our customers. So if you're a customer of mine, you come to me and you ask me, how many customers can you generate for me and how much would it cost me? And the only thing we charge is every time we generate a customer for our customers. So again, they're particularly happy because every time they pay me, they're getting a new customer. So they want to pay more and more and more. But this obviously doesn't work for everyone. And there's a lot of pitfalls in implementing a customer perceived. Is value perception. So what is perceived by customers, not in all products is the same. By all customers is the same. And obviously I shared my presentation 15 minutes. But if I live in Uber, for that I've Uber, the most reason for me sends me the invoice to my email. Reasons why I use, most of the times I use Uber, it's for professional reasons. Because I have a Portuguese company, I need the number and descriptions to pay 50 cents. Me, particularly him to issue a receipt that he takes for 5 minutes when I get to the place and I'm inside the finished manually writing my receipt. And then I'll obviously lose the receipt wherever I was going because it was just €5, so it's not life. Uber sends that to my email system with my expense system. Communicate to accounting, perfect. Comfort and the safety that it feels, not taking where there's where I'm going. I can my false sense of illusion safer than into a cab in the street, which is ironic that getting into a car with a stranger they called over the description of an but for instance, I love Uber Comfort not because the car is, but because I hate I don't want to sound the chit comfort have another conversation to tell me, please shut up because I don't want to talk to you. A little bit unpleasant, more for that. For me, that's the main value of calling Uber Comfort or Uber Black or whatnot. Is that I won't be having a 15-minute conversation with, that I'm too tired to have. Pretty sure a lot of people would say speed, convenience, whatever. I'm patient. I can call a cab, I could wait, I can get a cab on the street. That for me really doesn't change it. Waze is another great example of different values. A lot of people say that the main reason why they like Waze is because it warns them of speed traps. They can speed, they know in advance a speed trap. That's probably what made Waze famous. Other people will say that it's the traffic. Others will say that it's whatever. The founder of Waze is an investor and a board member at my company, and I asked him that question because I always thought that it was fascinating how different people saw different reasons to use Waze. And he said that internally in the company, their entire approach to that was predictability, which kind of sums it all up, right? It's the notion of being predictable when you'll get from point A to point B. Then again, he created this in Tel Aviv, which I understand that with the traffic, it kind of makes sense that predictability is more important than speed traps, because if you're always stopped, you can't go too fast, right? There's a big challenge, and I face this every day, is that customers are not used to this model. So old habits die really hard. Everyone remembers folder structures, right? If you think of it, it made a lot of sense back in Windows 95 when you would hit search and notice the Windows reference. I was using Mac OS Lion or something, but I adapted it for the Windows 95. So back in Windows 95, when you went to Explorer and you tried to type something and search, and it took 15 minutes for the gigabyte of RAM to process the search. Today, odds are files are not even in your computer or in the cloud somewhere, and searching for files is so much faster than clicking through folders. Same goes for emails, having folders for emails. Really think the last time that it was whatever it should be named and search for it. Do people do that? No, everyone still uses folders. Why? Because old habits die really hard. I have customers today, and I sell them results. I sell them customers. But they're so used to the mindset of buying Google Media that they want to know what the CPC is. And I'm like, what the hell do you care? What's the relevance of the CPC for you? But we have that metric here in my marketing report. Yeah, who cares? CPC of €1, you spend 5,000 clicks to get a customer. CPC of 10 euros, you spend 2 clicks to get a customer. What's the best CPC? But I have here the metric. So old habits die really. I have here the metric. So old habits die really, really hard. And last but not least, it does have a significant product impact. For stuff like CPC example. If you change your pricing to be 100% value focused, it will have a tremendous impact on your product in itself. I think it will have an amazing impact, and the real impact that a good product manager would have, which is making sure that your product proves, without any doubt, the value that it's delivering to the customer. Because that's literally what they're being charged for. So they will be demanding. They will want to understand. But, on the other hand, super interested in up-buying. And I know this word doesn't exist with this in this context, but I on purpose changed from upselling to up-buying because that's literally what happens. I don't have to sell to my customers after the moment they become a customer. I have to acquire them, in my case at Ledzai. After the conversations that I have with my customers, but are things like, why can't I spend more money? Why aren't you charging me more? Why aren't you generating more customers so I can pay more? But I told you I wanted to spend 5,000 euros and you're only charging 2,000. That's an amazing problem to have. And all of that happens only because I sell with its pricing model. If I sold a media budget, I would still charge them the same 2,000, still deliver the same customers, and they would say, well, 2,000 euros for those customers? Nah, terrible. If I'm charging per customer, they keep on asking me, may I please spend more? So you literally upbuying. You have customers that are trying to buy more and more out of you. And, sorry, jumped the gun there. Churn reduction. If you're not charging for something, there's no way it churns. You're not charging. If you're delivering value, it charges. I have an above 97% retention rate on SMBs. SMBs die more than 3%. SMB survival rates aren't even 97%. And the reason why I have that is because why would they leave? If I'm not delivering value, they're not paying. If I'm charging them, I'm delivering value. If I'm charging them even more, I'm delivering even more value. So life's good, right? Just as a last note, this is an example of a subscription pricing churn. This is the Google trend on the search, how do I cancel HBO? And I really didn't want to be an HBO product manager that day, because on the 19th of May of 2019, it was the last episode of Game of Thrones, and that was the whole reason why people had HBO. So this was the spike on search on how do I cancel HBO. Granted that HBO, Netflix, whatever, have specific business models like gyms that kind of rely on people buying and not watching, or buying and not going to the gym. So granted that it might not be that easy, but I can guarantee you that the spike wouldn't be like that if I paid per episode that I saw. Why would I cancel? Let me wait for Succession. It's now on HBO as well, right? That everyone likes. Let me wait for Succession. Whenever Succession comes along, I'll use. I'm not paying. I'm not watching. I'm not paying. Cool. Then a new series come along. Great. Now the alternative is, I'm pretty sure it churned like crazy, and I'm pretty sure HBO spent a shitload of money to try and acquire them again when they launched a cool new series that people actually subscribe to HBO again. And that will happen in the last episode of Succession or whatever trendy thing is today on HBO. So yeah, this is what I had to share about my experience on pricing. I hope you guys liked it. I know it's late. I was able to keep it shorter than 30 minutes. And if you have any questions, super happy to go through all of them. Thank you.